Welcome back, everybody. For those of you just joining, my name is Dominique, and I am a solutions engineer at HashiCorp. I hope you've had a lovely morning so far, and I've certainly been having oodles of fun. What was your favorite part of the morning, Charlotte?
Hey, hi, I'm Charlotte, engineering manager from Container Solutions. And my favorite part, I would say, has been the chat interactions, mostly because we don't really get to leave this track, but this track is awesome. Welcome. Keep up the good spirits in the chat.
Yeah, I feel the same. It's like it's always nice to have like a nice interaction with the community, and everybody's been absolutely really a lot of fun. So with that, I am here with the next speaker who is eager to get started. Join me in welcoming to the virtual stage, Melissa Jurkoic. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. You nailed it. Jerkoic. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. I was like, yeah, I always want to make sure I'm doing it right. So my apologies for not getting it right the first time.
No worries at all. I'm really
it's really early for you this morning, isn't it?
It is. It's before 9 here. We're over here in the northeast of the US. So it is early, but I'm really excited to be here with all of you.
Excellent. Well, I'm happy that you're here as well. And even though you've had already a very busy morning, so happy that you found the time to join us this morning with us. So with that, I'm throwing it over to you. Have a wonderful talk, and we'll see you afterwards for some Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dominique. So welcome, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Melissa Jurkoic. I'm the Chief Customer Experience Officer over at Adaptation, which is a small tech startup here in New Hampshire, where we focus specifically on leveraging our technology to deliver amazing user experiences for our customers. So you'll see that it's not a mystery why I'm talking about user experience and end users today. And I know that all of us are here today with a vested interest in reliability and sustainability. And really, what is reliability? It's all around trust, right? And who cares about trust? Humans. So the people are what's really mattering here. This is a hard truth, what I'm showing you right now. So amazing technology, as proud as we are of it as technologists deep in our hearts, it really doesn't matter if the users don't adopt it or like it. And so this is something that I've seen over the course of my career, and it's something that we take really seriously at Adaptation, as well as putting your end users first. And so I'm going to talk to you today briefly about why that matters and how you can do it, most importantly, and sort of some key strategies and principles around how to do that effectively. But it's really important to know, and I want to kind of leave you with this right from the start. A successful implementation of any sort of technology, whether that's like a huge digital transformation or you're just pushing from one system to another, you're displacing something that there's a user that's using. And even introducing new technology where there wasn't something before. So think of a manual process that you're automating, for example. That's still displacing something that someone did, even if they did it manually. And when you do that, you're impacting the end user. You're impacting that human. And humans are tricky, is what I like to say. They're unpredictable, and we need to build trust with them, right? So I know that all of you here today are really focused around building that trust through reliability and your focus around DevOps and site reliability engineering. So this will resonate with you that trust is really important, and people want to be able to rely on the technology. And so just remember that displacing technology has an impact on an end user, and a successful implementation of automating something that was manual before, or transitioning from an on-prem legacy system to the cloud, or any of these things, you are displacing that, and therefore you need that buy-in from the user. So successfully implementing does not mean successfully adopting. And that's something that I want to kind of bring home throughout this presentation today. And I want to make sure that it's really clear that adoption comes from the users. So the users, well, these are your users, right? And so some of this might seem familiar to you if you've been a part of any of those initiatives that I talked about, like digital transformation, or really anything that's displacing technology, even introducing new technology where something was manual. There are people on the other side that had a process and a job that they were doing. And so this is some of the feedback that you can see. And, you know, I had a conversation just yesterday, actually. It was really timely and interesting about what my perspective was for what it looks like in 2025 with technology and digital solutions. And did I think that the technology that we were building today, specifically at Adaptation or anywhere really, was going to be obsolete by 2025? And I thought hard about that question. And the reason why it's interesting is because there's people like this that are still using technologies that were built many, many more than 4 years ago. So when I think fast forward 4 years, sure, technology is going to advance. It continues to evolve. It certainly will look different in different ways. Just our work ethic and the way that we work has changed so much in the last year due to the pandemic. But what's interesting is I feel the technology that delivers value, no matter how antiquated we as technologists feel it is, will not become obsolete. I mean, some of these things are frustration points for people that have technology companies when they try to sunset old solutions. You think about DOS systems that people still use because they've never made the transition to Windows, and God forbid if they went to the cloud. So these are all important perspectives to have really when thinking about that, because the reason why these technologies don't become obsolete is because of these people. It's because of the end users. So they will go back to things that they are familiar to them, that are easy to use, if we don't put their needs first. So they are just as important as the technology. And something important about digital transformation or big technology initiatives, or even small ones actually, you always know you need to get executive buy-in. Why? Because they write the checks. So we need their buy-in because otherwise we can't execute. We can't do any implementation. And it's important for sure. I'm not arguing that. But I will also tell you and challenge all of you to think that it's also just as equally important and critical for the success of whatever you're doing on the technology side to get end user buy-in. End user buy-in is not the same as executive buy-in, but arguably just as important. And hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll agree with me. So what if I told you there was a way that you can organize architecture around these types of solutions where you put the users first? Well, there is. So here at Adaptation, we focus on something we call hub and spoke architecture. And that really is where your hub is where your data lives. So think about, and even like legacy systems, it's really where's the core of what you're doing today? Where is the business information being stored? How is that being connected to other systems? So really centering that. And then the spokes are just focused on those users and their specific jobs and the experience they have interacting with that data or inputting that data or gaining insights from that data, or whatever it is that they're doing with that. It's allowing you to build those specific spokes and experiences around a center of information. And what that does, and that whole thought process, is allowing you to do things like scale your technology, as I say here, without impacting the users, but also bringing them in early. So you're being thoughtful. So remember, now you have end user buy-in. And these are really important aspects to whatever you do with technology. Remember, because we're always displacing something. Whenever we do something new and shiny, and we're really excited about it as technologists, our end users are not as excited about that. It's to them, they were fine doing what they were doing yesterday. And they would just as prefer to do that than to have any change involved in their world. So how do we do that? So you're with me now and you say, okay, Melissa, I get it. End users come first. I get it. There's a model, architectural principle model around hub and spokes that allow me to design spokes around a centralized hub of information. But how? How do I do this? Where do I even start? So first of all, it won't be a surprise to you that I'll say you need to know what the users are, who the users are, and what they're trying to do. What are your users trying to achieve? We call that here the identifying the job to be done, and we actually map it out in a workflow, similar to a flow chart or a process map that you may be familiar with. And we walk through the steps that a user is taking to be able to achieve their job successfully. And that actually also doesn't require technology, right? They could be doing it with pen and paper. We're just trying to understand, what are they trying to achieve? What are the outcomes they're trying to reach? That's of utmost importance. And so these UX design principles walk us through the path to understand that with our users. So number one, identify who your users are and the job they're trying to achieve. And then how do you do that? You do that with them. And so I like to refer to this as inclusive design. And the way I describe that is building with someone, not for someone. And there's a big perspective shift in that, like your mindset changes, because when you're building for someone, you sort of presuppose and assume what their needs are, and you just go ahead and build it, right? You might design it, you may even qualify or get feedback from them, but you go ahead and build it. So you're building it for them and you deliver it to them. And this is a traditional technology approach. And I think sometimes we get really excited as technologists and, you know, how shiny and new it is, but the users may reject it, right? Because we didn't bring them along for that journey. And so that's why I say, let's build with them, not for them. And the awesome part about this is we got their buy-in early, because remember, end user buy-in, just as critical as executive buy-in. So if we bring them in early and we're collaborating with them, they're going to be on board. So we will have increased adoption, and you'll see some of the other great advantages of doing it this way. And then, when we move forward, database integrity, I talked about the hub and how we centralize that information. Well, we all know that we don't use systems just for the sake of using systems, right? Like there's a value at the other side of that. There's value for the business to be able to do things like reporting and analytics and understand how the business is functioning and the health of the business, and monitor and all the things that you do from a reliability perspective. Well, to maintain database integrity, again, that's where we keep everything centralized and we build those spokes around it. So we're not forcing the users down a specific path in favor of database integrity. We're actually allowing the users to behave and function in the most effective and best experience possible for them while maintaining database integrity. So we do put that as at top of mind because it's most important to the business. And then just as important as understanding who your users are and what they're trying to achieve and how, but where are they trying to achieve it? I think that's really, resident in all of our minds right now. Again, due to the pandemic, we've all sort of worked in different ways in the last year than we ever have. And some of us may have never been mobile. Some of us may have never been remote or had to do so many Zoom meetings, et cetera. So where are your users and where are they doing this job? And that matters. Their experience will differ on a mobile device than it would on their desktop. So really understanding that and their needs there, and do they work in multiple places? And do they have different needs when they're working in those different places? Really, really crucial. Because again, if you presuppose that they're never going to work on a mobile device, but they're leveraging your web application on a mobile device because it's cloud available, and the experience is poor, again, you won't get the adoption that you're looking for. So where matters just as much as what and how. And then finally, arguably the most important part of this whole process is getting feedback. So listening to users, but really hearing them and then really responding back to what their feedback is. So what we do here is we try to make that as easy as possible. So the way to get feedback all along the process and iterate is to make giving feedback easy for users. And that's something, again, we often forget in these technology projects. We're focused on the technology and we may be running across, certain urgencies and deadlines. And we forget about the fact that once we put it out there for users, we need to understand how is it impacting them positively and negatively. It's good to hear about the things that they're loving about it, but we also should be hearing about the things that they're not loving about it and have the flexibility to adjust. So, there's lots of schools of thoughts around, agile methodologies and doing this, but at a minimum, just being able to have some sort of pathway to gain feedback from users is really, really crucial. And it's something that we take really seriously at Adaptation. So you've done this, you've followed the 5 design principles. You get that executive buy-in and end user buy-in are equivalently important. So what are the benefits on the other side of this? Because investing in user experience isn't free. I'm not going to lie to you and say that there isn't a substantial investment in user experience, and doing it up front can be disruptive in terms of how we typically execute on projects. And there is a cost, but with any cost, there should also be benefits. And so I want to share some of these benefits, and some will hopefully be really clear based on what I've described. So when you put the end users first, you have reduced training costs because they've been along for the ride. And remember, you built with them inclusively with them. So they understand how the system works. So there's no feeding it to them after. You didn't build for them and now you have to tell them how it works. That's amazing. So now reduced training costs is a huge benefit. Adoption is accelerated, again, because you got their buy-in so early. They're on board. They're like, let's go. I love this. Some of the other things that you can do if you take the time and you really map out that job to be done is identify things that need optimization. There could be things that were automated before that didn't work right, but people sort of worked around them because humans are crafty individuals and they will work around it, and not even tell you, right? That's why that feedback is so important. And then also there are things that they've been doing manually that could be automated. I'm a big fan of automating the things that are always repeated. If you're doing the same things over and over and over again, automate those things. And then finally, we talk about adoption a lot and why that's really important, but retention. So some people will adopt early because they love technology or they want to try it out or they have more tolerance for change. but then they'll drop off because they're like, yeah, you know what, my old system was better, I'll just go back. And so retention is really important, and we see increased user retention. Again, part of that is because their buy-in was so early, they feel like they're just part of this journey with you. So a little bit more about me. I wanted to share what I know before I told you more about me, but here's a link tree if you want to get in contact with me. I love connecting with people. I'm a little bit of a networking junkie. So please connect with me. Love to share more information about what we do at Adaptation, about, our thoughts and design principles around user experience and our ability to do this. And then finally, I just want to leave you with, remember that successful implementation does not equal successful adoption. And we as technologists have to put the end users first in order for that to really, really change. And then I'll pause and see if there's any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Melissa. That was great. It was a bit short, and I forgot to look at the little schedule thing. I was like, I thought we had a bit more time. Did we have any questions, Charlotte? Did you see any coming in?
We do have an audience question about the worst war story or fucker that you have seen where you did not have the end user buy-in.
Oh, that's a good one. It's a fun one from my past. And it's, so I worked for a hospitality and travel technology company for about 2 decades. And we started, there was like front desk software, if you think of when you get checked in at a hotel, right? And so you may not realize that in the early days, they used DOS to do that. If anyone remembers DOS prior to Windows. So when I left that organization 20 years later, we were finally sunsetting our last DOS customer. Now, at this point, we had transitioned well into Windows and had multiple versions of that same software in Windows, 3.1, Windows, all the different versions of Windows right up to Windows 10. And then we had shifted to the cloud, and we had built an app on Salesforce.com. So we remind you, we have a DOS customer and we are in the cloud on Salesforce.com. So I would say that was pretty clear. Like that's why I say, like, when people ask me in 2025, do you think that what we're building today will become obsolete in 4 years? I'm like, oh gosh, no, because there was a DOS customer after 20 years of my existence at that company that they were just finally sunsetting and convincing, right? And so that person missed, all the transitions from DOS to Windows to the cloud. So that's going to be a huge disruption for them as an organization. But to me, I'm like, that's a pretty nasty war story in terms of we definitely left them out, sort of marooned on an island, right? And so I think pretty good testament to you need to bring your end users with you, because they will just stay. They won't even come kicking and screaming. They will just stick their heels in the sand and not move.